allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. Major public media has been notified. NOACA conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. If any member feels the need to abstain from any vote due to a conflict of interest, he or she should state their intention to abstain when the matter is introduced by the chair for presentation for the record. Subsequently, that member shall not participate in any discussion of the matter for which a conflict exists. According to Robert's rules, absence from a meeting does not require a member to abstain from voting on the minutes. If the member still wishes to abstain, he or she should state their intention for the record. For the benefit of our guests from the public and the recording of this meeting, please be sure to speak into a microphone. The microphones can be turned on and off using the gray button on top. They are on when the light is blue. Thank you. I would like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the April 8th meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second? Seconded by Debbie. Any corrections or additions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, public comments. Has anyone signed in today to speak? So no one has signed in, so we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the executive director's report. Any report?
No specific report. I did bring the cookies for you to enjoy, but I also wanted to let you know that those cookies with positive messages were, an entire box was given to each employee.
Okay, or is this-
It's been out for a couple of years, but it's relatively new, yeah. And, they say I'm a leader, I'm an innovator, I'm a go-getter, those kind of things. And they taste pretty good too.
It goes down so fast, don't even realize what's written on there. All right, well, thank you. Next on the agenda, action items. There are no action items for today, so we're going to move on to presentations and discussions. First, I think we should talk through the meeting schedule. Grace, I think right now we're at a monthly
Monthly, right.
meeting. Any input from the membership at this point? Do we want to stay monthly, or do we want to do that through maybe the hiring of the additional position that we're working on right now, and then see if we want to start to go quarterly, and what are the next steps?
For the new HR director, and then I think quarterly, soon as possible
Great.
would be good. And I don't know, Mayor, are we gonna at some point have Grace give an update on the status of the hiring under old business, or?
Yeah, we can even, I'm fine with doing that right now.
Sure. So I had mentioned the last time that we were together that we had received over 100 resumes and that we were in the process of contracting with a professional HR firm to run the process. So we have contracted with Clemens Nelson, and they are running the process. They have narrowed those 100 resumes down to 20, and they are conducting the 20 interviews, and then we'll come up with a short list to provide to us.
Then from an interview perspective, Grace, I think you had asked if I would be involved. Kyle, if you'd like to be involved.
It would be great.
And we'll kind of start there. And we can talk about, additional, requirements once we kind of finalize candidates and see if we want to kind of move down to additional staff members, et cetera,
Okay.
for that part of that interview process.
Timeline, like when is Clemens Nelson gonna get you the?
They're currently in the process of doing the 20 interviews, so as soon as they're complete. And I believe they started them at the end of last week.
have you given them sort of a general scope? I mean, I guess my point is I'd like to move and get someone on as soon as we can. So like, are they working on it every day?
I think they are.
Okay.
I mean, Lindy's nodding yes. She is helping to ensure that Clemens Nelson is moving forward as fast as possible. And she's nodding yes, they're working on it every day.
Mr. Chair, is this a process where they did like phone interviews to pare it down to the 20 and then there's a live
I
interview
think
now?
there were Zoom interviews, so they're, yeah, I mean, essentially not in person, virtual,
Okay, but then they'll go to the virtual or the in-person.
the next one.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe with Lindy's help, we can get an update on when we think we're going to be narrowing it down to 3 or 4 candidates.
Lindy, do you have an idea on the conclusion of the 20 interviews?
With the results of the 20?
Well,
Or sorry.
when we will be concluded with those?
Oh, that was what I was going to update you about after this meeting. So
Oh.
she's looking for dates from your calendar for next week or,
Okay,
Great. So they have recommendations for next steps in the interview process?
yes,
Okay, great.
sorry, I can hear.
Thank you. Anything else on the HR director position? Next, under presentations, we have performance evaluation process. So Lindy, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. So the purpose of this presentation is to review with the subcommittee the performance evaluation process that NOACA uses for all of its employees. An overview on our process. It is done annually. It's conducted each year following the end of the fiscal year. So we typically will kick off with instructions to staff around the last week of June, and then July 1st, which is the beginning of the following fiscal year, kicks off the process. And participation in the annual performance evaluation process is for any employee who's been with the agency at least 6 months of the prior fiscal year. And then I did want to highlight that in addition to our annual performance evaluation process, we do also conduct 6-month reviews with every employee at the end of their, we call it an introductory, 6-month introductory period. So our evaluation form is comprised of 2 sections. The first section is performance objectives, and those are established as an individual work plan with each employee when they come into the agency, and then those are updated by the employee's supervisor each year. And each of those objectives, we do emphasize with staff that they should be SMART objectives or SMART goals, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to the job duties, and time delineated. Each of those 4 objectives in section 1 of the form is rated on a 5-point scale. And I have each of the attributes of the points in front of you there, 1 being the employee failed to meet the requirements, 2 being improvement is needed, 3 meaning the employee did meet the requirements of the objective, 4 met all the requirements and exceeded in 1 or more areas, and then 5 would be consistent, high-quality work, which far exceeded the requirements. Section 2 of the form is comprised of leadership competencies. These are common to all employees except for the 6th, and I'll explain that in a minute. So the 6 leadership competencies in our form are external relations, execution, initiative, teamwork, technical knowledge and skills, and then developing others. That one is only applied to individuals who supervise other employees. And section 2 is also scored on a 5-point scale that is similar to the first scale that I showed you. So 1, failed to demonstrate the competency, 2, improvement needed, 3, demonstrated sufficient level of competency, 4, superior level of competency, and 5, demonstrates exceptional level of competency. So this is the process, and it's the individual steps that we follow each year. The first step in the process is that the form is distributed to all employees who again are eligible to participate in the annual process. And each employee completes a self-evaluation that's both scoring and comments. And then after that, we also did, this was actually the schedule from last year, so I'll walk through it. But we did do a help session for all employees to walk through the process, walk through the form. Following that, the employee then turns the form over to the supervisor, and the supervisor completes their portion of the form, which is also scoring and comments as applicable. Supervisors will also seek input from their other director colleagues or from the executive director if that particular employee has worked on a significant initiative with another, in another area of the agency. After the employee and the supervisor complete their portion, then our division directors do review all the forms for the employees of their division. In some cases, the director may also be the supervisor. And then after employee, supervisor, and director level review has occurred, HR reviews each of the forms for a calibration. So we're looking for consistency between the scoring and the comments. And then feedback is provided to the director and the supervisor if we're seeing inconsistencies. So for example, either an employee or a supervisor might have rated the employee a 2 on something, but then it's not specific in the comments as to how that employee didn't meet that particular objective. Also in the opposite, if someone's given a 4 or a 5, but the specific comments don't specifically identify how that employee exceeded the requirements. One thing that we also try to impress on all the staff and the supervisors is that a 3 is good. A 3 means you met the requirements of your role, and that 1s, 2s, 4s, and 5s should be more unusual. We also conducted and have also always conducted a calibration session with the directors. So that has usually been facilitated by our HR consultant. This past year, the consultant came in, looked at the data, summarized data for each of the evaluations, and then also went through some of the attributes that I just described to you, giving examples of, hey, I saw a 2 here, the comment didn't support it, or a 4 or 5 here, and just walking, again, directors and supervisors through the best way to, the ideal way to fill those out, and trying to standardize the process for all the participants. Following calibration, the executive director and our finance director then develop the merit raise scale. So we do, as many of you are aware, we do apply merit raises each year, and those are based on the results of this performance evaluation process. And then at the same time that the merit scale is being developed, supervisors are sitting down and meeting with their direct reports to discuss the results of the evaluation. And then following that, the salary adjustments are incorporated into the payroll. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, we also do conduct 6-month evaluations with all new employees. We use actually the same form for the 6-month evaluation that we use for the full annual performance evaluation. And with that, I will pause for any questions.
Lindy, quick question for you. I want to understand a little bit more on the merit and the pay changes. So you develop a scale based on the overall rating, and then that will determine what that percentage is. Is that correct?
Correct. And I would probably ask either our finance director, Deb Wardell, or Grace Galucci to speak to the way that's developed. I don't participate in that particular part of the process. Sure.
Good afternoon. The first thing to consider is that we have to stay within the 3% that the board approves. So that's taken into consideration. The average scores, we get a starting point, equal increments above and below.
Okay,
Is that sufficient?
that's sufficient.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
But another question on that. So the board approves 3%. And then folks get their scores. Is there a score below which you get no raise? Like if I get a 1, am I going to get a raise?
My experience here has been that there hasn't been anyone that's gotten a raise.
You mean not gotten a raise?
Not gotten a raise, yes.
But I will say that in the past, there has been the situations where someone's performance is in a place where they do not receive a raise.
Right,
It's
that's,
rare.
that's performance management.
Correct.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay. And then Mayor, can I ask another question? So Linda, you talked about the training being voluntary. Is there any mandatory training?
Oh, the training for the performance evaluation process?
Yeah.
No, we did require that everybody attend the work session. Did I?
You had it as voluntary.
Did I have it? Was it on the, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's great. I mean, because it should be mandatory. So I'm just asking, so training on for folks each year going through this process, you're saying is mandatory for all folks doing evaluations?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, you're right. We did, it was voluntary this past year, but I agree that yes, we offered that session as, you know, as a courtesy to employees to better understand the process. But yeah, I could see how, yes, mandatory is a good idea for everybody.
So what happens if somebody gets a 1 or a 2 on their evaluation? What happens after that, just from a performance management standpoint?
So at that point, we get our HR consultant involved and we develop performance improvement plans for the employee or PIPs.
And then just for my now, curious, so somebody goes through a performance improvement plan and we're maybe 90 days after the performance evaluation and they've made significant improvement based on the PIP. Are they able to come back and
I believe
get an
that
additional increase, or did they
No.
lose that increase for the year?
they have
based on-
lost that increase for the year. Their opportunity then is essentially to improve going forward.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
And if there is not significant improvement, then what is the next step? And how long does that take to kind of effectuate a process if they're not showing improvement?
We have, if they're showing sufficient amount of improvement or effort towards improvement, then they're extended some more time. If they still do not complete it at the end of that time, then they are either offered, if there's an available position that is a lesser position that would be a match for them, they are offered that, or we have also terminated people.
I should know this as a board member. Are we on a fiscal year or a calendar year?
We are in a fiscal year of July 1 to June 30th.
Okay, so that give or take 3%, is it always 3% that's approved?
It has been 3% since I have been here, so
Okay.
yes.
So that 3% then's approved at the beginning of that fiscal year. I was curious with the September timing of the payments. So is that made retro to the beginning of the fiscal, or is it just starting at that point in time?
It has been made retro to the beginning of the fiscal year, and I do need to correct something. Although 3% has been the average, there was 1 year where it was 2% and 1 year where it was 4%. So that back-to-back years. So that did balance it to 3, but there were those 2 anomalies.
And then the 6 sections, that's been developed by the previous HR, or has that been, are those internal programs or?
Yeah, no. So I brought the instrument with me when I took this position. I actually, the majority of it comes from the RTA. So I participated in the development of that instrument when I worked for the RTA. They had essentially hired a consultant to revamp the entire HR process, including the performance plan and the performance review instrument. And so I shared it with senior staff. We also looked at other ones. We looked at ODATs. We looked at others that others had worked at. Senior staff decided to choose this one as the one to move forward, made some minor adjustments that would better tailor it to our organization. And that's essentially the instrument.
So is the thought I mean, it seems like it covers the basis for my limited knowledge, but is that the thought that would move forward, or that when the new HR person's in, that'd be in their kind of realm to determine if this works or if there's an alternative that needs to be adopted going forward, or
Yeah.
what's the thought on that?
I think that would be in the realm of something that the new HR director would take a look at and assess in terms of its success here. I think generally speaking, the performance reviews are received well. However, there has been some discussion about the scoring. Is it a 3-point score? Is it a 5-point score? Is it a 10-point score? And some, even though it's well defined as to what constitutes those scores, there's often some I guess, question about how accurate is it and how subjective or objective is it?
Well, that was the one thing I noticed about the procedure. I think it's good because you've got different department heads, but then it goes back to the HR to kind of level set things. I think that's as objective as this process can get, because it's always going to be only so objective, but I think that's a helpful thing. And then the tie-in to the merit pay looks like that's at the very last step. So some years, a great score could become next year's average score or
Correct.
vice versa. So there's some ability to kind of adjust there.
Correct. It's adjusted specifically for the average scores of this particular round.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate too. Thank you.
Then just to add, going back to the merit, so if in each department, is it consistent based on, so if I get a 5, no matter, what department I'm in, that's a 4%. And if I get a 3, it's a 2%. I'm just curious, is that consistent across the board?
Generally, that is the way we have done it. However, I know that at the RTA and then subsequently here, we have done it where if there were vast differences that could not be reconciled during the what was the name of the
Calibration?
yes, the calibration process, then we have created individual scales for each division. So that way we would ensure that the director that was rating those staff person was consistent across their staff people, but not necessarily across the organization. That has been the minority of times that we've had to do that, and it was only where the calibration did not produce a conclusion that was fair and objective.
Quick question. So apologies for my tardiness today. Just catching back up, just for clarification, you're talking about the GCRTA, not the
Yes.
RTA in Chicago. Okay.
Sorry,
got-
GCRTA here in Cleveland,
got
yeah.
a lot of RTAs in my head. Got it. And then we're talking about probably something that was about 10, 15 year.
It was probably at this point, when I first arrived here, it was probably, even at that time, 10 years old.
Okay. So got it. A while.
A while, yeah.
Is there, I was just looking on page 13 at the bottom of the form. And it's pretty standard, right? Signing off means that you receive the information, not necessarily that you're in agreement with it.
Correct.
Is there an appeal process, or what if someone does not agree with it? What happens and what's the process for that?
That has happened very rarely, but if someone does not agree with it, the appeal process comes to me.
Any other questions on the performance evaluation process?
Just on that procedure, would that be something that we would run through the HR executive in this new structure? Or is that something that you believe is integral to the ED role?
In the appeal of something?
Yeah,
That's a very good question. I think it would require some discussion and some thought. Right. Right.
Certainly think it should be something that the HR director is involved in.
I mean, I would see a universe where the HR director puts a report out at the end of the performance management cycle that could come to this subcommittee. So we just get a report of how performance management went that year, looking at the bell curve and like how it's landed, just kind of to make sure that we're looking at the outcome of it. But those kind of individual decisions where someone wants to appeal something, I would assume in the employee handbook that you're the ultimate decider. Yeah.
And again, that's happened very rarely. I can't even think of more than one or two.
And then just because I think, I know what I believe that I heard this accurately, but the 3%, the finance director ensures that when you roll everything up, it ultimately is going to be around 3% for the whole organization. You're not going above or beyond that. Right. Gotcha. Any other questions?
And just to add a little bit more to that, so the scale has been as low as 0% and as high as 5%
For an individual person.
for an individual person.
And then one other question, and then I'll go.
How
go
many
ahead, Rich.
people don't get 3% on average, do you think?
Good question. Obviously, if you did the bell curve, the majority of people get around the 3%, whether you're talking, a little bit more or a little bit less. And then the outliers are the 4s and 5s and the 1s and 2s.
For new hires, is there any different evaluation process, or they just pretty much fall into this?
Yes, the new hires for the 6-month evaluation, we use the same form which is again, their individual work plan, those 4 objectives, and then the leadership competencies.
Do those, just to piggyback, do those new hires, are they eligible for the 3%, or is there a wait period between when their hire date is versus the new year?
So we do a prorated raise at the 6-month point, and then when they do qualify for the annual raise, it would be prorated again for the period that they were at NOACA during the fiscal year.
Any other
Mr.
questions?
Chair, do the new hires have a 90-day window, or is it 6 months?
6 months.
So they're essentially in that 6 months times their probation period?
Correct.
Do we actually call it a probationary period?
Call it an introductory period.
Just curious, is it, not really specific to this, but since we're on the topic, can they take vacation during that time period, that 6 months?
Yes, they are allowed to take the leave that they have earned.
Okay.
Questions? All right, thanks. Thanks, Lindy.
Thank you.
Appreciate the walkthrough. Grace, anything else to add for today's meeting, for presentations and discussions? Not, we're going to move on to the rest of our meeting. No, I believe there's no executive session, any reports or anything else to add, any old business? I think we covered some of the old business. Ryan, do you have anything to add today? Thank you. Any new business, Grace?
No new business.
Anyone else on the committee have any additional items they would like to talk about? Okay. There being no further business, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Kyle. Is there a second? Second by Aaron. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.